I'm so glad those people were clothed.
After some reread for this big collab Jura video, he's the best written and coolest Boruto villain by far. None of the others come particularly close, which is odd considering such quality in a short amount of time. Ishiki does continue to improve post-death, though. So now I have two things.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be real. How has Ishiki really continued to improve post-death?
I mean,
like, yeah,
I like
you can
that
say
he
there's a
says
couple.
that.
It's not really him continuing to improve. It's that his effect on Kawaki has lingered in Code as well. But that's not Ishiki improving. That's just showing how good Ishiki was in the first place.
I see why you're saying that. I'm okay with saying that Ishiki improved.
How did he improve?
I think it's just interpretation. I think you're saying the same thing as Troy.
That's fine. That's not really the point. The point is, okay, coolest Boruto villain, whatever. Best written, I just disagree. I would argue Jura is a better character than most of the other villains. But I think Ishiki just is the best written villain in the manga, or even our shoujoji, honestly. They all execute their roles perfectly and flawlessly. You're not sitting there pondering for 6 hours why Ishiki didn't kill Naruto and Sasuke, because the story gave you reasons. Our shoujoji are even more flawless, but they just lack the huge impact that Ishiki has on Kawaki, obviously. Code of the Code arc specifically is another great contender. As a villain, Jura hasn't actually done anything besides hurt Inojin. And bro is fine. Jura is all hype for the future, which is fine. But you can't use that to say that he's already the best villain.
So,
as a villain, what has Jura done for our main cast of characters? Oh, he pushed Himawari to overcome a character arc she never needed to overcome in the first place. You know what? Anyone else could have done that. Troy literally thinks that all the Shinju are stronger than Himawari. Jura didn't push Himawari mentally. He just was strong. That's all he did there. She could have thrown Matsuri in there, and it would have done the exact same thing.
Yeah, the mental thing and the intent to be a threat to the world is what really matters. I disagree with your premise that Jura is a better character, but Ishiki's a better written villain. I don't think we can even make an argument for Jura being a better character. First of all, Jura isn't...
we don't actually know.
Well, that was going to be the second thing. The first thing was going to be, Jura's not even a complete character yet. In my opinion. That doesn't necessarily mean...
I agree with that.
Okay.
I'm purely using assumptions on the intent with Jura's character for that.
So this is like a hypothetical Jura. Of like where the direction...
Hypothetically, we're just right about Jura. I'm just using that. I'm basically just giving Troy the benefit of the doubt on that to say he might be a better character, but I don't think he's a better villain. Even that technically already has a flaw in what I'm saying. It's really Jura's a more interesting and complex character in that sense. Not necessarily better, because what is a character? Well, the character is just the thing and the role in the story. Ishiki as a villain is if he's a perfect villain, he's a perfect character. Might not be the most in-depth, interesting character, but that doesn't mean he wouldn't be the best character in that hypothetical.
Yeah, that doesn't mean...
I should even just rewrite it to Jura is a more interesting.
Okay, I guess you could say that.
Because that's really what I meant. I find more message and so on from the character.
And that's where it gets hard, because a perfect character can be better or worse than a different perfect character. You can still measure perfect characters against one another, which is funny to say.
Yeah.
But I would say, even giving you the benefit of the doubt, giving Ikimoto the benefit of the doubt, let's just say we are right on Jura. I would still argue, as of right now, he is still an incomplete character. Because, well, how would we even...
Well, he is incomplete, obviously, no matter what, but...
Yeah, and so I feel like it's also unfair to even measure him to Ishiki in this regard anyways. But because like how would we even know that he's complete? Like Ikimoto could hypothetically tell us, oh, in the future, yeah, I'm gonna reveal that you guys are right. Or let's just say, without Ikimoto telling us right now, let's just say we just know in the future, chapter 52 of Two Blue Vortex, that yeah, everything that we said about Jura is going to be retroactively confirmed to be true. Either way, we're not there yet, and even if it's retroactively changed to be true as of right now, even if we knew that to be true right now, even everything we've said about Jura up to this point hasn't yet made him a complete character. As of right now, even if we're right, Jura still, even with us being right, isn't a complete character as of yet.
No, I completely agree. That's why I just changed it to be interesting.
Okay.
Because even with that, he could be more interesting despite being incomplete, and I would just agree with that. But
I agree.
But I don't think he's the best written villain.
Yeah. Well, because again, I think that partly has to do with personality as opposed to role. Because going back to like Yoroi versus Keen versus Kimimaro,
exactly.
Yoroi has zero interest.
Ishiki is just good.
Yeah.
But his personality, you might say, you don't have. Even then, they set up a decent amount with him. They just haven't come back to any of it, to where it's just kind of hard to say some things.
I really like Ishiki's personality. I love seeing him on screen. Obviously, if you like compare it to like Tokyo Revengers, that character has more personality, more entertainment factor there. But like Ishiki just has a different vibe, even if it's just like a similar idea.
It's more that they just never fully fleshed out like his lore and like why he personally wants to become a god. Is that unique from anyone else and blah blah blah. Those are just things that they could have done that they never did. Well, they might do in the future, but like so far they haven't done.
Yeah,
that's really the main thing that I would say is lacking there. But I'll even edit this to say I'm fine with saying Jura is.
Okay, sure. I would also say I kind of disagree on the bottom part. Jura hasn't actually done anything as a villain. Because if we're comparing the actions, this just gets back to what Mello was doing as opposed to how it actually should be done. Like, yeah, he only hurt Inojin, but it's like, this is what I was saying about like the potential threat to the world versus the active threat to the world. But also like the mindset that these leaves on the characters, or like the possibilities that the characters has can also play a role. Because again, Boruto's trying to stop the worst possible future. So going into it before Jura even existed, he in a way had character, even if we didn't know it yet.
Okay, but real quick. Everything they've said about Jura as a world-ending threat just did apply to Ishiki equally as much in the exact same ways too. The same exact method. And Ishiki was equally as unstoppable for everyone if you don't defeat him before it's too late.
I mean, your tone sounds like you're disagreeing, but that would go along with what I was saying.
Maybe, okay, well, your tone at first sounded like you were disagreeing because you said, I disagree with the bottom part.
Well, that wouldn't be tone. I'm verbatim stating that I disagree with the bottom part.
I realized that as I was saying.
Well, what I'm saying is that you can't say Jura hasn't actually done anything as a villain yet, therefore bad, because then you could technically...
That's not what I said. I didn't say therefore bad. I said you can't use it to say that he's already the best.
Okay.
That doesn't make him bad at all. I literally say he's all hyped for the future, which is fine. I'm just saying you can't use that to say he's already the best villain. You can't say Madara was the best villain in the Tenchi Bridge arc when Kurama mentioned him. That's just set up for the future. Can't say he's already the best.
So that is like directly what you said, but like, how would he use that to say, regardless of already, how would he use that to say at all, best villain or not? Well, that would be a qualification of good villain, of doing things.
But he hasn't done anything.
But that's what I'm saying, is that I disagree. I don't think that's really as much of a qualification as it is made out to be.
Okay. How about I phrase it this way again? whatever you're saying in terms of the potential threat thing that Jura has quote unquote done, Ishiki did plus more.
Okay. Okay. So, okay. Because what you're doing for like the good or bad qualification would be in reference to the best rather than in general.
Yeah, that's the point of this topic. Who's the best villain?
Sure, but I was assuming the
I'm not
best.
saying Jura's bad.
I'm lumping in the best with qualifications of how to get there, which would just be good in general, rather than a distinction between the best and not the best.
All I'm saying is Ishiki's better so far.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know how you're so confused on this. You know I like Jura. I talk about Jura more than any other character.
I don't think I'm confused here. But okay.
What I'm saying is, well, Oodie, since you disagree so much, you tell me, how is Jura already better than Ishiki as a villain? Agree. You disagree with me.
So Kamui. Let's establish some common ground. Are Naruto villains are there any good Naruto villains?
No, they're all amazing.
Okay. So that means they're good rather than bad in terms of that simplicity. I know, but okay. So then the best Naruto villain is good, and we would use good qualifiers to place them above the other good villains.
Yeah.
Okay.
You would just say they're either better qualifiers or they have more good qualifiers.
And so I think Troy's claims is that the conclusion is that he's the best, rather than that's the premise that he's then backing up. So it's like, you gotta reverse engineer it here.
What? That was the most nonsensical thing to say about this. He's saying Jura is the best written and coolest Boruto villain by far, by the way. No, it's not even close.
That's in reference to... Okay, he didn't say anything.
To the villains of Boruto!
But it's in reference to your last point because
it's so much quality in such a short amount of time. He's not even saying that in the future Jura will be this in such a short amount of time as in the amount of time Jura has existed. He's already the best by far.
So what is your last point in reference to? If Troy didn't say anything, what is your last point in reference to in terms of doing stuff as villains?
I wouldn't have even written this point if Troy didn't say anything.
So then what did he say that point is responding to?
How can he already be the best villain by far when he hasn't done anything? If you're using hype for the future, that's not something he's already done to make him the best. And also, I didn't write this, but all those things about Jura apply to Ishiki anyway.
Okay.
So what did Jura do in addition to Ishiki's entire story with Kawaki?
But because we know that Troy is saying this as the conclusion to the video, the collab video that he's talking about, that he's already written and seemingly recorded. That's clearly what he's saying to get to the premise. I'm assuming because Troy didn't say anything, if you're writing this in response to Troy, this is in response to what you assume Troy is saying in the video.
I was writing this to Troy, but...
Well, it's in response to what Troy said. In regards to, this is assuming that Troy is saying something around this in the video.
Saying something around what?
How is Troy going to justify Jura being the best in terms of villains?
I don't know.
Well,
I don't even know, like I said, I don't even know if his Jura video is about him being the best. It might be power scaling, and he just so coincidentally, after doing all the rereads, also decided he's the best written villain by
But
far.
then
That doesn't really matter
Kamui,
to me.
but then Troy's not the one saying anything about the best villain in terms of doing stuff or not. You are.
That doesn't matter.
But I would disagree with that.
Why? I'm asking. The point of writing this is how the living hell is he already the best written villain by far? How? You tell me, since you apparently agree with him.
My
Because you
point,
clearly don't agree with me.
you are pointing to something specific in terms of what they're doing, what they have done specifically as a villain, and then you reference hurting Inojin, so you're referencing physical actions in terms of qualification and in terms of good or bad in terms of the villains.
Well, it doesn't have to be physical. It can be mental. What did you do mentally to Himawari that only Jura could do specifically? Nothing. It wasn't about the mental battle in terms of Jura's words. It was about the physical battle there. Nobody cares about Himawari anyway. In terms of his discussion of love with Boruto, yeah, I'll let you count that. But I don't think that holds a candle to what Ishiki did with Kawaki. I'm over-exaggerating. Jura's obviously done some things. He's heard Inojin. He fought Himawari. He talked to Boruto about love. I'm just saying, what has he really done that stands out in terms of his villainous actions as opposed to just his character development?
Yeah, that's the problem. You're the one saying it. Troy isn't even talking about what the villain has or hasn't done.
He's saying he's the best written villain by far. What makes him the best written villain?
And he...
Generally, the things the villains do in the story would generally be one of the reasons you would say they're the best. You know, the things that the villains do
but who is
in the
you?
story
Who is
that
you?
is written.
Is you Troy?
You are being so ridiculous.
Oh my god. I am. But that's
Yes,
a genuine
you
question.
are.
Who is the you? Is the you everyone or is the you Troy who you're responding to?
Everyone.
Okay. I would disagree.
Then what would you use for your metric for making someone the best written villain? What metrics would you use? You don't use what they do in the story, evidently.
That's not even necessarily
So what
true.
are you using? How they look?
You can include that.
What else would you... Okay, what would you include? What is your focus? Because apparently what they do, the things they do don't matter. So... What matters?
Okay. I'm not the ridiculous
one.
one.
They matter too, but as I already established, that's pretty minimal.
You're not making stuff. I've clarified my position. You're just lying.
Well, I'm saying that half jokingly, but like, my God, are you being so antagonistic towards this point that I have no choice?
No, I'm not. I'm clarifying this point that I disagree with. You can.
So look, I'll give you an example. Pain's words to Naruto in the cycle of hatred speech. That's something you would point to for Pain. Jura's conversation about love with Boruto is nowhere near that good. And I think Ishiki's constant belittling of Kawaki and the countdown and all that shit, those are words, not actions, are much more. So in terms of things Ishiki said versus Jura said as villains, I'm going to go with Ishiki. In terms of the things that they've done, I'm going to go with Ishiki. So what are you going with? It's not the things that they say, it's not the things that they do. What else is it?
There's a lot of different things you go with. For example, impact. I don't want to get into like everything about that right now.
Impact. Great. Tell me how Jura has more of an impact than Ishiki.
That's not the point, Kamui. Because you're saying Jura hasn't actually done anything. What actually is...
You're just hyperfixating. Okay, I'm gonna fucking rewrite this because you're making me mad. Hasn't done... impacted... said... or whatever the fuck else you want, anything as a villain. How about that?
My point with that was to say, actually is just a substitute for the word even in order to emphasize the importance of doing something, and you aren't listing any of the other qualifiers, which tells me that you think doing something as a villain is more important or the only thing, but I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and say more important than other things that you could have listed as a villain.
Such as
impact.
I just listed it. And I also, to clarify, the things Jura does is supposed to have impact that kind of just goes with it and says, yes, I didn't write that. But I even that, okay, realistically, when I said Jura hasn't done anything as a villain, I'm including all of it. What he says would be something he does. What he literally does, physical actions would be counted, obviously. And those things that he does and says is supposed to have impact. It kind of just goes with it. I think you are hyperfixating on something that I obviously was including, and for some weird-ass reason, you're pretending I didn't mean it. Even though I obviously did, because you've talked to me enough to know these things about me.
Okay, but the word you're saying is besides hurt Enogene, not like, for example, hurt Enogene. So you're because like associating, directly linking.
I can't to fucking explain this. It's so obvious that I'm hyper exaggerating the point. I'm saying, what has this man done for the story besides hurt Enogene? Who cares about? My point is, as a villain, what has he done? Like, it's so obvious. I want to end stream right now. I'm so baffled by this. I feel like Mello.
I'm like Mello, he says. I'm just taking this as a paragraph on its whole thing and then looking at this bottom tangent.
You're stupid about it.
I'm looking at this bottom little blurb that you wrote here, and I'm questioning why you even wrote it at all, let alone why it's written the way it is.
No, you're not. No, you're not. There's no way you're questioning it. It's so obvious.
Okay, I feel like when you get worked up, you don't even want to give the benefit of the doubt.
No, because you're being ridiculous.
No, this reminds me of that one JJK conversation. BlueStar's back, by the way.
I bet BlueStar will know why I wrote it.
BlueStar, do you know why he wrote it?
Well, lost out of curiosity. I've just like got off the train to like head to my work, and it's like, you guys are still on? I'm amazed.
Right. We're kind of. We're not going to be long.
That's our topic, right?
So, all right. Let's see if BlueStar can figure it out.
You've already edited it, and that doesn't matter because I was going with based on your original impression rather than your update based on what I said.
Okay. I'll do this. I'll do this.
Just cut it instead of deleting it entirely so that you can put it back.
All right, let's see. So we got.
Well, don't read it yet. Don't read it yet. Okay. So Troy said that, based off his reread, Jura is the best written and coolest Boruto villain by far. So not Naruto villain, just all of Boruto. This includes Boruto Part 1.
In which he's making a video. He's already made a video on.
That's not the point. I don't know his point. The point was to bring up the discussion. Okay, so Troy said Jura was the best written and coolest Boruto villain by far. We can just skip over coolest because that's just an opinion. That's not really the point. So best written villain by far. Okay. So I'm just going to let you read what I initially said and give me your thoughts, BlueStar. Oodie, and no interruptions.
Okay, so I'm fine with saying Jura is a more interesting, let's see, complex character, but Shiki is the best written villain in the manga, or even the...
in my opinion.
Shoji?
Or even Ao or Shoujoji.
You see, they execute their role perfectly and flawlessly. You are not sitting there pondering for 6 hours why Shiki didn't kill Naruto and Sasuke, because the story gave you reasons. Io and Shoujo are even more flawless, but the huge impact has on Kawaki. Code and the Kodak specifically is another good contender. Jura hasn't actually done anything as a villain besides hurt Inoji. Inoji and Bro are fine, and he'll always be the future. He'll always hype for the future, which is fine, but you can't say he's already the best villain, And not to mention that the three feels cheeky anyway. Okay. Okay, so it's basically whether or not Jura is the best villain, okay.
So
At
real
the
quick, so
moment, I'd
BlueStar,
probably say that...
so are you
Yeah?
a screenwriter? Just first question.
Not really, no.
Okay, well that's all. No further questions.
Alright, but anyway,
Oodie, you were hyper fixating on something that just so stupidly not like there. Like, you know what I mean.
So what do you think about
So,
Kamui's like last of his like 4 little points here?
so you mean the part where Code and the
They're
code
not really supposed to be points, like separate points. It's just kind
No,
of like,
I don't
just
know
got
how
this
you want me to
basis
say it, like blurb, paragraph, point. I don't know how you want to say it. I'm just making up new words every single time.
Well, Jura's still technically a new character, so he hasn't had much chance, I guess, to shine, though I guess you could argue him beating the crap out of Boruto right now is giving him sort of credibility in terms of threat, because every villain character we've seen so far has gotten their butts up with. I mean, like particularly Cole has basically become a bit of a joke now. So I don't think you can say Cole in long term is one of the better villains.
I said specifically in the Code arc for Code anyway.
But yeah. But Ishiki, I can see why he's definitely probably got the most memorable moment, because it's like you got Naruto's final fight with Kurama against him at the very least. Though I think there could also be a case where you could argue that is it Momoshiki, Kishimoto's original Suitsuki antagonist for the Boruto film. You could argue might be the better villain, just because it's been written by Kishimoto, and also you've got more long term of him affecting Boruto with the karma seal, I guess. But
I would have put Momoshiki if the prophecy arc didn't exist, but because of the prophecy arc, I just didn't bother writing. it.
Fair enough, but yeah. But to be honest, I don't really think the majority of Boruto's villains are all that good, to be honest. I suppose the one that's had the most impact is Ishiki, but that's just in terms of the original cast, I'd say, rather than, I guess, the Boruto characters.
Impact, huh? I would agree with that. Yeah. Interesting word.
Oodie, I want to beat the shit out of you. You know that impact is included. I already explained it.
Okay, that one was just a rub salt in the wound.
I see.
This whole thing is just a troll.
No, it's not.
I know you don't disagree with me. Because you only hyped up how amazing Ishiki and the Kawaki arc are, and you have complained about Jura more than any Part 1 villain. I know you think Code and the Code arc is a better antagonist. I know you think all these things. You are just being a dick to me.
You think that I'm agreeing with Troy when I'm not.
No, you're disagreeing with what I said when you don't disagree with this.
You think...
Because you're saying things I didn't say.
You think now...
Or taking a meaning, I gave you the meaning behind the done anything, and you're acting as if that meaning isn't there, even though I already explained it.
You think that right now, my stance that I'm saying is that Jura is the best villain.
No, it's not. When I said that was half joke. What I'm saying is, I explained done anything. That includes saying and impact. You're acting as if it doesn't include that still. When I talked about the hype for the future, I said, that's fine. These aren't bad things about a villain. Lily says, which is fine right there. But I'm saying you can't use future hype to say that he's already the best villain. And even if you did, that applied to Ishiki just as much in the exact same way.
In many ways, it depends on how Jura's executed later down the line. But at the moment, he seems to have the most potential of being more recurring antagonists, since most of the previous antagonists were mostly major antagonists for like one arc, and then they were done with. So it's like Jura seems to be being more built long term, like how Toby/Obito was in Naruto and Orochimaru.
Yeah, and I never said that Jura won't be the best in the future. All I'm saying is, currently, it's Ishiki. You know why, Oodie? Because you've already said it yourself. Jura's character arc isn't... You know when we were talking about this? It isn't complete. What? what on earth would make you say he's already the best written villain?
I'm
He
not
is
saying
so
that.
incomplete.
Kamui, my point has always been on the villain archetype from a writing perspective. I'm not talking about Jura or Ishiki or the comparison between them. It feels like you are stuck on only discussing the characters.
Yeah, because that was the entire point. And now you are stuck on saying something I was never saying in the first place.
Which is what?
That I only think about what they do and nothing else. I ignore all other aspects of being a good villain, even though I explain that this includes everything.
Okay, and until you explained
so
it, I can only go based off of what I'm seeing.
But it's so fucking obvious what done includes. It includes what you do in the fucking story.
I will say this. I feel like in terms of personality, the Boruto villains are kind of lacking. Let's say, like, compared to like the Naruto ones where you got Hidan's crazy religious Etsy fanatic, Deadler's Etsy obsession with his art, and I guess sort of complexities of like Sasori and his life as a puppeteer, I guess. So oh, and even like Zabuza and Haku's like relationship at the beginning of One Land of Waves.
You
I
know,
just feel like
Kamui, how I know that isn't true though is because you're just saying he hasn't done anything besides hurt Inojin, so that can't include everything because his impact would be the threat of the worst possible future, but you don't list that. You say he's only hurt Inojin as his only thing that he's done.
No, I said, okay, the threat of... I want to beat the shit out of you. He's all hype for the future. The worst possible... What? You want to say the fucking F word? Future. Not present. The worst possible present time. The worst possible future. That's what he's hyped for. I say that's fine.
But then impact isn't for the present moment, it's for all of time. He has impact in the present because of his result for the future. Boruto and Koji want to kill him now.
But that's not anything he's done. That's things he's going to do.
That's impact, not doing things.
I mean, again, compared to Ishiki, that's the whole point of this.
But then okay, but it's not
fixating on something.
But then
you're
it's not
hyper fixating on things I didn't mean, and it's ridiculous. And I want to end stream. I don't want to watch a movie anymore. I'm ready to be done because I'm that annoyed.
But you're not comparing it to Ishiki here because you're just saying besides hurting Inojin rather than like hurting Ishiki or other than Baryon mode Naruto.
Wow, you managed to annoy him so much that he's left the stream. That's kind of impressive.
Well, to be fair, we have been here for like 9 hours anyways, so...
Yeah, I'm quite shocked that it's lasted this long. It's like, you're definitely going to have a lot of editing for this one.
Well, to be fair, we did just start early, which is why. So it was less of a cutoff time and more of a... We just started with buffer time. You want to count like that?
Yeah, that's because you started early as well. And different time slots too compared to everyone in America.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, when Kamui gets worked up like that, he just sees everything in a heightened state anyways. I was not being ridiculous. He was just seeing me as ridiculous. Again, it goes back like the broccoli example from earlier that you weren't here for. But if you have like a bad experience going into something, it doesn't matter what it objectively actually is. And you can see that in a rational state of mind. But when you're in an irrational state of mind, you're going to see me as being, because I was trying to even be towards the end there, extra reasonable in my tone of speech and everything. But he just couldn't stand me disagreeing and saying that I know what he's talking about. Like, that's not true.
Okay. Well, fair enough. Well, I have to watch to see whose side I take to be fair.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Because I was going based off what it was written as without my influence, and he was like editing it after the fact, and I was going based off the original conversation rather than like the in the present moment with what we had already said.
Fair enough. Who knows? Maybe you guys need to do a tier list for Naruto villains and Boruto. But yeah.
Well, I think we're going to agree on that because what we were discussing wasn't even the villains in Naruto themselves. It was just the villains and like what makes a villain good. Because he was like responding directly to Troy with this thing.
Okay, so enough. Well, usually I guess the villain, usually what makes a villain see good as, I guess, the impact they have on the story, their
Exactly.
character, and the relationship with the protagonist.
Exactly. So how Kamui was looking at it is that Jura is the best villain, rather than what Troy is saying, to where he's looking at the best villain and then he's then getting to Jura.
Okay.
So he'd be looking at what makes a villain.
At the moment, let's see. I'd say at the moment, Jura is currently lacking the more personal relation with, like, I guess, the main cast. I mean, granted, it's so far antagonistic, but they haven't really had much, I guess, interactions yet.
Yeah, so I would say that because Kamui was disagreeing with Troy, he has to make an assumption for what Troy would believe to be the best villain, in which case Kamui would assume that doing things would make a good villain in Troy's eyes, which is why Kamui would write that to disagree.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, well, that's the way I see it anyways. I feel like there's no other way to interpret it.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we got your input on that one.
Yeah, I'll see what the fallout is later. But yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I take it you need to